Yep. Now, did you, and I don't know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if they ever explicitly say how everything transpired. So I don't want to say that Voltec were the ones that ultimately were responsible for the bombs happening, but they definitely had no problem with
I
them
think
going off.
I think they hinted that they were frustrating the negotiation talks.
Yes,
Because
that's true.
remember they were talking about how the negotiations weren't going well. I think they weren't going well for them, so they had to do something to kind of make sure that they kind of stalled or something.
Hmm. No, that's good to know because yeah, I wasn't too sure exactly how big of a role they were with that. Obviously, best case scenario for I guess depending on how you're looking at it, they were totally just okay with anything that happened. Worst case scenario, they were in essence the ones that were pushing the button, so to speak, for everything to happen.
Well,
So
I'm thinking what they did was they may not necessarily have been the ones who pushed it, but they sort of encouraged and guided people
absolutely,
to do
yes,
that. You know.
yes. Yeah, they absolutely. It was kind of like you watch something terrible happening, and you just kind of take a look to the side and be like, "Well, not my problem." So, but yeah, and then, so yeah, so I think we have kind of all these kind of elements happening, and then we kind of get our penultimate episode, right? Our finale here with episode 8, where everything kind of comes together, right? And we start to learn a little bit more about it, and I think this is where Moldaver, she really kind of steals the show for me because I think for the most part, like we're looking at this character, we've always kind of looked at her as being the villain of the show, right? That's how she was kind of initially introduced. But as we start to learn more and more about it, it's kind of like she's actually the good guy. And like we've been kind of following not necessarily the villains, but we haven't been following the right people because really for her, like Moldaver, so we find out that she created this free cold fusion energy, right? And that because she was, kind of this, scientist that was looking at this stuff, that Voltec, in essence, like pretty much bought out her company or what she was working with, and pretty much like just put all of her research, pretty much stopped all of it. So she wasn't able to take the cold fusion knowledge that she had out there. Um, and we see that Hank, who she kidnapped, right? He was a part of Voltec. So, the guy that, Lucy's been tracking down, her father, who we think is this kind of like a good guy, he very much was working for the enemy, so to speak. Um, there's also kind of, we learned more about what happened to Lucy's, excuse me, mom, who, she had kind of left the vault, right? And kind of was, living on the surface. And Hank had ended up coming to like get the kids and get them back, and in essence was okay with kind of murdering her, right? And you kind of get the vibe for Moldaver. Like, did you get a vibe that they had a very strong relationship, Moldaver and Lucy's mom? I forget her name. But did you get like they had a really strong relationship? If you're catching my drift.
I mean, at the end, they're sharing that final, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, seat together. So
Yes. Yep. So yeah, I think that that's kind of what they're hinting at. But yeah, we have like, she's very much Moldova for the most part has been kind of our hero, right? And I love how everything kind of turns on your head at that stage. Obviously, there's been a lot of hints to it prior to this, but this is kind of that moment where it's like, oh wow, like she's just trying to, you know, give people power back. And I think that that was such a good scene that once she gets access to the cold fusion that was in Dr. Wilzig's head this whole time. I like how she kind of plugs it in, and I love that scene where you see kind of the city in the background all starts to light up. Now, granted, I would have severe questions over how any type of like power like electrical structure could exist that long. Like I don't want to get into all that because I feel like that's a little bit too over the top. But
mhm.
I think that that was just such a powerful scene to see that. And you kind of have this moment where you have the ghoul showing up to the scene. You have Max with the Brotherhood that's attacking them all. And you have Lucy there, and you kind of see how all these characters are coming to the conclusion that, holy crap, am I the bad guy? And I think they all have that moment, right? Because
Hmm.
Lucy's been trying to, go after Moldaver to get her father, but the father was very much a bad guy in this. And you see Max, I think he has that very real realization. Moldaver has kind of that nice line where she's like, well, if the Brotherhood of Steel gets this, what do you think they're going to do with it? And I think Max knows the answer to that. And that's that the Brotherhood of Steel, they're going to use it for their own means, right? So here you have the Brotherhood of Steel that's, trying to come in here and get this. They're doing it for their own nefarious reasons. And you see like the Ghoul, like he's very much, interested in Hank and all of this. So he doesn't care so much about, everything that's going on at the Cold Fusion, but he's very much a part of this because he thinks that Hank has information about his family, right? Like what happened with his wife, what happened with his daughter, and what's going on there. And I love that kind of how everything unraveled in that last episode. I thought it was really well done. It definitely was maybe a little bit too fast. I thought it kind of went rather quickly through everything, but I just loved all the realizations that happened. So
You think they took all these? You think they took all these events and kind of compressed it?
Yeah,
in that
for
one
sure.
episode?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there definitely was. They definitely took some creative liberties with moving people around when they needed to. Like, having Lucy just randomly stumbling upon Max, having all the characters kind of meet in Philly at the same time. They definitely, put the fast forward button to just kind of make things work, for sure. But yeah, how did you feel about kind of the final episode here when we kind of see everything happening?
I really like that battle scene between the Brotherhood of Steel and the NCR
Yes.
when they attacked Griffith Park. I was like, you know what? That's very much like a Call of Duty scene right there, especially when you have all those little ships like approaching the park. I'm like,
Hmm.
I think it reminded me of which one was it? I think Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. That's what it made me think of for some reason. um, and, and just the way they were going at it, it was like again, it's over the top, but you know what? It's appropriate because it's based on a video game, and video game violence is over the top.
Yes.
Um, I just thought the realization that that ghoul that's just sitting at the table is Lucy's mom at the end.
Yes.
Like man, that hit me right there. I'm like, holy crap! Like because on the one hand, that you kind of get the feeling that is the mother, but at the
Yes.
same time, when it's finally revealed, it's like, whoa! Like,
Yes. Yes.
let
And
me catch my breath.
yeah, and imagine from Lucy's perspective, right? Like, I mean, she's been doing all this for a father who you find out is one of the biggest piece of shits out there, right? Like
Yeah, because he's the one who killed her.
yeah,
Or tried
exactly,
to
right?
kill
He's
her.
the one that did all this in his own like obsession. So I think that as I said, I really liked how everything gets kind of turned on its head at the end, right? Like everything that we kind of going for, where Moldaver's always been looked at as kind of the bad guy. She's doing all this stuff, but really she's probably the best person that's we see in the show right now, right? As far as like her kind of ideology goes, like she was just trying to make the world better, right? And I think this is where I guess we start to really think about all these different factions and what they do. And I think to kind of close out everything, I think this is what I like the most about kind of the Fallout series is there's just so many different factions, and they all have this type of idea of what it's going to take to kind of save the world. And I love how everyone has this different approach to it, and it constantly clashes. So, who's right and who's wrong? Who's to say? We never really know, right? Is Moldaver, yeah, so she created this cold fusion and she's, doing what she can. Is that ultimately going to be, is that the start for everything being better? But then you have the Brotherhood of Steel coming in, and what are they doing with everything? Like, what is their plan for cold fusion? Is it just to kind of create more weapons? Is it going to be how they kind of constantly do some of that stuff? And I just, like I said, I just found that to be such an interesting thing. Is like we just see all these characters, the NCR, like you mentioned, haven't talked about them a lot. Then we have the Enclave, right? So we have all these different entities that exist within this Fallout world, and I'm just so interested to learn more about the universe. And I think that the first season does a good job of kind of dropping you in, getting to know some of the stuff. But I'm absolutely looking forward to the future seasons here and what they do to kind of expand within the world. And I think at the end, we see an image of we see Hank looking at Las Vegas, right? So clearly a hint there that we're going to be going to Vegas in the near future, just like Fallout Vegas. Definitely looking forward to that. So, what are some of your thoughts about the series as a whole?
I'll tell you what, I'm really, really excited about that hint with Fallout Vegas, because guess who appears in Fallout Vegas? Caesar's Legion. That because in the franchise, Caesar's Legion is the sort of fanatical cult-like group that's operating out of the Southwest, and they're very, very much based on Roman culture, right? So I'm hoping at least they make an appearance in season 2 and they go up against the Brotherhood of Steel, because then you would have these two fanatical organizations, each who very, very certain in their ideology of how the world should be.
Yep.
So I
have that military prowess to back it up, right?
Exactly. So I would love to see how these two, these militaristic societies kind of go at it in the next season. I will say, I will say this: like, I'm not really much of a fan of series based on video games, just because I had high expectations for Halo and I was burned by it. but I think what they did here was brilliantly executed, right? Because they took the parts that were familiar, but they also added parts to make it their own, like I said before. So they're not really following any one particular game of the franchise. They're just taking bits and pieces and kind of creating their own, as it were. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think the problem that you have is, some showrunners and writers and execs, they feel this need to be, to sort of follow, whatever the established storyline is down to, to the letter. And it creates a huge opening, because then it leaves you susceptible to to making it as faithfully as possible, or trying to make it your own, and in the end neither party's satisfied. So I think with what they did here was they adapted it, but they weren't trying to say, oh, it's based on the first Fallout game, or it's based on Fallout 4 or anything like that. It's its own thing. It can stand on its own 2 feet, and it does a phenomenal job with the characters that that it has. Now, in terms of the characters in the show, obviously there are a few that we have take issue with, and we've already mentioned that. But for the most part, the main characters pretty much shine and show that this is a franchise that has the potential to go on for many, many years, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That being said, I mean, there are elements of the series where I feel like they could have just either glossed over or omitted, but but it's just one of those things where, if they feel that it's important to the story, then more power to them.
Yes, and I think just because it's the first season, I think typically it gets away with more of that stuff, because we don't know ultimately what story is they're wanting to tell, right? Like, where do they want to put the focus for everything? I just enjoy like all the different factions and kind of seeing these ideologies clash, as like we've gotten to a world where so many people have their own mindset over what to do for kind of reestablish the society, and ultimately all they're fighting is just kind of delaying the inevitable of like, okay, like probably one or more of these people probably already had a good idea that if you just let them do their own thing, we probably would have been able to restart a little bit quicker, but we're still struggling with that. So I definitely enjoy the world. And I think something you mentioned that I guess I'll bring up right now, right here at the end, is like a lot of the side characters, like you mentioned Shet, and Lucy's brother, Norm. So like these characters, like they do such a good job. So I know we focus a lot on Max, Lucy, and the Ghoul or Cooper, but there is a lot of these side characters that do such a good job, and I think it'll be very interesting what happens in the future, right? What happens with Norm now that he's in Vault 31 and he's come to find out everything that's going on. How does Shet and the other people that moved to Vault 32 doing? What's Thaddeus going to do now that he's a ghoul? Like there's just kind of like all these like interesting plot threads that they could definitely use in future seasons. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. So
Yeah, I think
guess
I bet. Well, I was gonna say I think that definitely like the definite storyline we're gonna see in season 2 is Cooper and Lucy going after Hank. Like,
yes,
I
definitely.
mean, that's true. I mean, there's no doubt unless something changes. I think that's going to be the running storyline of season 2.
Absolutely. And I think we'll see how Max gets incorporated with that because he's going to be bringing the Brotherhood of Steel along and kind of their clash, like you said earlier, with the other faction that's in Vegas. So I
Yeah.
definitely think that we're going to see how all these characters, they'll definitely be intermingling more in the future for sure. So,
But I mean, that's why we like the Fallout universe, is because it's
yes,
so big and expansive. I mean, there are just so many possibilities to it.
absolutely. Plenty of
So,
things that they could do there. So, but yeah, so I guess for me, I guess I'll go ahead and give my final grade for this. So, I really, really enjoy this. I think it was a great show. Really liked the humor in it. I like the characters, especially both Lucy and the Ghouls character. I think they were real standouts for me. And I think a lot of the side characters were also really strong, right? So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed just really just the production value that went into this. All super strong. Like I have to admit that, like I think they did such a good job with just creating everything. It feels very much lived in, and like you pointed out, it's not like heavily reliant on CGI. They absolutely did a good job with that. And just the humor, right? It's just kind of it just has its own kind of quirky way around it. So I think they did a great job. I'm very interested in it. I would say just one thing that, depending on how much you look into it, some of the like kind of the coincidences, how everyone kind of runs into each other, I can imagine be kind of jarring. So there definitely were times where I was just like, oh geez, like that was very convenient. Like, like when Max loses like when Max has the power suit and like a bunch of people trying to steal the suit, like he's able to beat them up even though there's four of them. And he kind of magically gets into the suit, or for Lucy, she loses a finger and then gets it back really quick. So there's kind of like some things like that if you really kind of look at it, it could be a little bit like, okay, that was kind of weird, but I don't think that overall took me too much out of it. So I think I would give this honestly a solid, I'm going to say 4.3 out of 5. The Ghouls. So 4.3 out of 5 Ghouls for me. I think they did a good job with this, and I think it was a great adaptation. So hopefully other people enjoyed it.
yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite shows, to say the least. I mean, what I really, really enjoy about it is that from a production standpoint, everything about it is just, I mean, it's just top notch. It's such a visual feast for the eye, because you have all these contrast settings. You've got everything from the Brotherhood of Steel base, to the armor, the airships. I mean, my God, like it looks so authentic and lived in and real, and yet so fantastical. It's like, I mean, you sometimes you just have to sit there and try to process it, because there's just so much going on, but it's so well done. And then, like you said, the vault, the way that the vaults have been designed, it looks authentic. It looks, I mean, it looks amazing. And then the
Yeah,
wasteland,
absolutely.
and then the wasteland itself, even though it looks like there's nothing going on, it's just so expansive. You could see so much potential, and it's just populated by all these different groups and different factions. I mean, apart from the NCR and all these other weird individuals, I think there's do you remember that one scene where the ghoul gets arrested by the government?
Yes.
and he's just no friend of ours. I'm like, because I remember watching, like, holy crap, like these guys are operating out of the wasteland. Okay, I mean, hey, it's a free for all basically. So that's what I enjoy is, like, even in places that you think shouldn't have anybody in there, there are people there, right?
Yes.
Um, so I would give it a 4.5 out of 5 ghouls, just because the visual experience is amazing, storyline is well written, characters are brilliant. I mean, I kind of wish they could have done more with Maximus, because I feel like he probably had the most potential, because being the runt of the litter, you kind of figured there's so much more he could prove. But I feel like in terms of proving himself, it came more through trickery really than actual valor, right?
Yes.
Because because technically he didn't earn the armor, he just took it off a dead guy.
Yep.
Really.
And technically, he got all the praise for killing Moldaver when he really didn't. So, like I said, I like the ads for him. He absolutely failed up throughout the whole show.
Well, what I thought was funny was the fact that even though Lucy was willing to be honest with him, he still chose to lie to her, right? So he could have told her, yeah, my name is Max, but no, he just said, yeah, my name is Titus. Just call me Titus. And he didn't come clean probably until the very end, But I think in terms of future seasons, I think there's a lot of potential there.
Absolutely.
Like, they could go in any direction. Hell, season. I mean, I know I said it before, but even if they decide to devote season 2 to something else, I wouldn't be mad at all.
Yeah,
because it's because they're just so many different rabbit holes that you can go down, and you wouldn't be disappointed in any of them, right?
Absolutely. And that would be very on par, right, for the world, right? Like, you
get side quests somewhere,
you get side quests for something else. So
yeah. Now I will say this: you contrast with another Amazon series, right? The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. I think right now you've got two examples of how to adapt existing work very well, right? Because like I said, hold on. Let me continue with the thought.
Okay.
So, and I'm being ironic in one of those examples. So,
okay.
So obviously with Fallout, you have you're taking in existing material, but you're adapting it in such a way that it's able to, like I said before, it's able to stand on its own 2 feet. It's a unique product, but yet it's recognizable as part of this universe, right? And now, in terms of the Rings of Power, you're taking something that's already existing, but instead of trying to, be faithful to the material, you're just taking it in a whole nother direction to the point where it's no longer recognizable, right? Yes. And then you're just asking yourself, well, wouldn't it be easier to just create something completely different altogether rather than just slapping, a recognized name onto it?
Yes. Absolutely.
And I think those two contrast each other very well, and it's very bizarre that these two can exist in the same the same platform, right?
Yeah.
Because one is doing such a phenomenal job in knocking out of the park, and we know it's going to get a second season, and the other, you're just scratching your head and you're asking yourself, how the hell is it getting a second season?
Yeah. And think about how much more money is spent on the Rings of Power compared to...
Oh my god, they pumped so much money into it. So there's this expectation that it should be, as good. Yes. But but you come out of it and you're like, I have no idea of what the story is about. Mm-hmm. The only reason why you know what the story is about is because it's in the name, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, suppose with Fallout, like you pretty much know what's going on from beginning to end. Yes, there are like side stories that keep popping up, but overall, you know what plot A is, right?
Yes.
But with the Rings of Power, it's pretty much like I could sort of guess what's going on, but I don't want to say it because I might be wrong. So that's my 2 cents on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just because season 2 of Rings of Power is supposed to premiere in September, so that should be a barrel of laughs right there.
Yes.
But yeah, that's gonna do it for our review of season 1 of Fallout. Let us know down in the comments below what you think, if you agree with us, and if you're looking forward to season 2 as we are, and also let us know which factions you're a fan of. Remember, there are no wrong answers here, but if you say Brotherhood of Steel, you'll get a thumbs up. But that's going to do it for our review. And thank you so much for watching. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.